I had someone that really loved me.
They were this perfect, happy little family.
She was an answer to my prayers.
He gets to put away his loneliness. What more could he ask for?
I had it all. I got the prom king.
She was somebody that was easy to talk to. She was a pretty girl. Hey, all is good.
At least, that's how it starts.
A screw came loose somewhere.
You never know what you're gonna get.
It just gets my wheels to spinning. I'm gonna find out the truth one way or the other.
I dated a nice guy.
I dated a romantic, heartthrob, hottie, doctor, bad boy,
Charmer,
cheater, control freak, creep, jerk,
Liar. I dated a psycho. In northern Indiana in 2007, 31-year-old office manager Mary Gemmer has been divorced for a decade. She has plenty, though, to keep her occupied.
I was a very busy single mom of 3 children. I was divorced 10 years prior, and I spent a lot of time with the kids and working and hanging out with friends.
Mary's a great friend. She'll, she's always there for you. She'll give you the clothes off your back if that's what you need. She's always smiling. She's always in a good mood.
Mary has her kids and her friends, but there's more to life.
I think she was looking for someone so she can like settle down, start something with someone new.
I was dating off and on with different people. Nothing that was a big deal.
Her social life revolves around her children.
They were involved in a lot of sports, and so I was a softball mom and a football mom, and I did a lot of things that were sports related with the kids.
High school football is huge in Indiana. In March 2007, Mary comes to watch her son play. And when she spots his coach, Jake Williams, a new game begins.
Being a high school football coach is a prominent position, and it's very much in the limelight. I don't know that I really thought much about him. It was just a parent-coach relationship.
Until she sees him under those Friday night lights.
I thought he was really cute. He has really brown eyes, and he's an attractive guy.
Dating a football coach would be a big deal. He was built like a house. I mean, he could play football rather than coach it. He seemed to be a very nice guy, polite.
I grew up being the nerd pretty much all my life, and Jake was the high school jock, and just the fact that he showed any interest in me at all was attractive to me.
Our high school identities often feed our self-esteem issues for much of life. And so for Mary, that identity of being sort of the geeky girl in high school may have often made her feel like maybe she wasn't that girl that someone would want. So when someone like the high school football coach pays attention to her and she thinks he's this sort of handsome guy, that has a very powerful impact on Mary.
I knew he was coming on to me that night. He gave me his phone number, and we started texting right away. The texting was very flirtatious in nature, and he and I were joking back and forth with each other.
Then, fate steps in.
My girlfriends and I went out for a night on the town, and we ran into Jake and one of his friends, and they sat with us at a restaurant. He seemed really attractive to me. He had been out, so he was dressed to impress, I guess. And he was extremely flirtatious and kept putting his arm around me and making jokes with me, and we got along really well. He was always laughing, always had a smile for everybody. He got along with everybody. He was just a very fun person to be around.
She talked about him all the time.
We just both dove right into the relationship. There wasn't any hesitation on either of our sides.
They would go out to dinner or to movies, taking walks, going to, downtown South Bend. They just seemed genuinely happy.
I was very glad that my mom and Jake were dating. She seemed happier. He brought a lot of energy to the family. He played with us. He was really nice to have around.
There's only one potential complication. Jake separated from his wife, but still living in her basement.
He had told me that he was just staying in the same home as her because they had a daughter together and he wanted to be close to his daughter. He was very convincing and said that there's nothing going on between them.
But as much as Mary would like to believe Jake,
She does have to wonder what still goes on. What does he still feel for her?
Mary and I, because we've been friends for so long, we can be incredibly straight with each other. She was upset.
I was really uncomfortable with the situation that he was in, still living with his wife, and so I tried to end it after about a month. I continued talking to him, but I tried to keep him at a distance. So I told him I was going to continue dating other people.
the split is tough on both of them.
He was not happy about the decision, and he wanted to continue the relationship. He would still text, he would still call.
With her friend's support, Mary tries to get over him.
If she needed me, I was there. Jake would occasionally stop by the house just to see if, if they could talk. It's nothing more than, a boyfriend trying to get back with his girlfriend.
It was romantic because I thought that he really cared about me, and he didn't want me to see other people. So, and we ended up starting to date again probably a couple weeks later.
The breakup had been amended, and they were happy together.
New relationships send all kinds of neurotransmitters in our body that not only bring us pleasure, but kind of make us stupid. And in her case, what probably is happening is that she was feeling very happy, and she thought, am I really going to make this stop happening? Am I really going to question this? And I think Mary was sort of doing what she needed to do and looking where she needed to look to keep things in a happy place. And so she was sort of pushing down that feeling of discomfort, and it is such a common thing for people to do early in a relationship.
The next 2 months seem to go beautifully.
Our relationship was extremely passionate. We were just extremely compatible.
Everything did seem, for lack of a better word, perfect.
I really felt that I was in love with him. We still had that intense physical attraction, and that hadn't changed. And I just wanted to be in a relationship with him. I felt like I had everything I wanted. I had my kids, and I had someone that I thought really loved me. And I was on his arm, after the football games, and I was able to share a little bit of that limelight. I had thought I had it all. I got the prom king. He made me feel really special. I was still uncomfortable with the fact that he was living with his wife.
Mary's solution? She invites him to move in with her.
They were moving forward as a couple. I mean, they were living together, and things seemed really well.
The relationship grows even deeper when Mary finds out she's going to have his baby.
I was really happy. I know he was really happy. The kids got along really well with him, and it just seemed like a perfect situation.
One thought, though, still troubles her. The wife he hasn't divorced yet.
Even though the relationship was really going well, I still had in the back of my head that what he had done to his wife, he could probably do to me. And Jake would start getting telephone calls and texts late at night, and I just started getting suspicious.
Mary sneaks a peek at his phone.
I would see inappropriate messages from other women, a text message or a MMS message that was sent to Jake personally from another man. I was amazed. I was getting seeing text messages from women, and now I'm seeing text messages from men, emails from other men, and I didn't know what to believe.
After 3 months of romance, single mom Mary Gemmer and football coach Jake Williams are happily in love. In the summer of 2007, they move in together and have a baby on the way. But then Mary finds racy texts and selfies sent to Jake by other women and other men.
No words to describe how that made me feel. I was mortified. I didn't want to judge him for being bisexual. I was worried about STDs. I was worried about if he was going to cheat on me with a man or a woman.
Jake was the big small town hero, right? He was the big football coach, and there's a lot of ego behind that. Ego is the biggest driver for why people go out of their relationships and engage in games of betrayal and hurt and cheating. The fact is that it's usually to fill in an emptiness.
Jake insists the texts are jokes, but Mary isn't laughing.
I don't know, I'd get angry about it and he'd keep denying it, and I, at one point, thought that I was going nuts because his denials just were so insistent.
Besides, she has no proof he's actually cheating on her.
I ended up not forgiving him, but trying to move past it. I stayed in the relationship because I was pregnant with our child.
And Jake badly wants to hold on.
He was scary. He would cry, he would fall down to his knees, he would get angry, he would do some really insane things, telling me that he was down at the river with a gun in his mouth. And I'd be texting back and forth with him, trying to convince him not to do anything hard or rash.
Turns out, his threats are empty.
I was sitting in my living room texting back and forth with him, and every time that I sent him a text, the hallway would light up from the bathroom doorway, and I knew that it was his phone going off. And so I realized that he was in the bathroom texting me while he was trying to make me feel guilty about him being down at the river with a gun in his mouth.
Jake is clearly a very manipulative guy. Faking a suicide attempt to get her to stay with him is manipulative, it's childish. Jake actually sounds like he has borderline personality disorder.
I think he was not necessarily suicidal, but he wanted me to think he was. He was very good at guilt trips. It was just a constant internal battle with me because I still loved him and I still wanted to have a family with him. I wanted a mother and father in the same home for our son. I was always worried that he was going to be with someone else, and he was still getting messages and emails from other women and other men, and it wasn't going to end.
Still, she can't bring herself to leave him yet.
I was still dealing with a lot of my guilt from how the relationship started, and it was just, I think I entered kind of a depressive state while I was pregnant, which probably didn't help at all either, the hormones.
After the baby's born, Mary gathers her strength and throws Jake out of the house.
It was hard to determine who I was going to be cheated on with, but I knew it was inevitable.
Mary was done with the whole situation. She wanted nothing more to do with any of it.
But the story is far from over.
He would drive by the house when she had company over to see whose cars were there. Text messages would follow, phone calls would follow. She could tell him that it was over, and he just wasn't getting it. It wasn't in his vocabulary.
Then, one night, as Mary lies in bed,
The bedroom window broke all over my head, and I started screaming, and I can still hear myself screaming. It was probably one of the scariest things I had been through, just because I had all this glass coming down over my head. I instantly knew that it was Jake.
She calls 911 and reports him. The police pull Jake over about a mile from Mary's home. He's charged with criminal mischief, but he's out on bond within 24 hours.
I was sitting down watching a movie, and I saw Jake sneaking up to my front door. And he was watching me through the top of the front door where the window is.
He doesn't stop there.
He slashed some tires and kicked in the doors of the truck.
Something wasn't right with him. It's like a screw came loose somewhere. That's when we started advising Mary to proceed with restraining orders and legal actions to keep him away.
I knew he could hurt me. He's a big guy. His demeanor was extremely scary at this point because he was just always angry.
My mom was definitely scared for her life, multiple times. He threatened her, he did things that would harm her, he scared her. I was worried for her.
That's when I got my first restraining order. I had basically kept a journal of everything he had done up to that point, whether it was following me, driving by my house, constantly emailing me, sending texts to my friends, just so many things that he had done that just weren't normal. I was very scared for my kids.
Coach Jake won't admit defeat.
I didn't think he was going to let me move on with my life. And he seemed to have a mindset of, if I can't have you, nobody will, and that scared me.
Mary Gemmer thought she had it all in her relationship with football coach Jake Williams. A hot guy, a fun partner, and the father of her baby boy. But when she finds other women and other men are sexting him, she throws him out. The coach goes on the offensive. A restraining order has no effect.
It started off with text messaging and harassing type phone calls. And then as it progressed, it got a little bit worse as far as showing up at the house. And our officers were dispatched to the residence numerous occasions for violating that protective order.
Jake threatened my mom quite a few times. He did stalk her. He drove by a lot that I know of. My mom has had to call the cops plenty of times because she saw him drive by, and he just put my mom through a lot of stress.
Coach not only can't stand losing, but this is a guy who can't stand losing anything. Not a game, not a woman, nothing.
For months, Mary keeps a knife under her pillow.
Mary didn't sleep. It was very common for Mary to sleep 30, 45 minutes at a shot. The rest of the time was spent looking out her windows, just making sure that, he wasn't around.
She wasn't sleeping well at all. She was afraid.
When Mary got the gun, it showed to me that she was generally concerned for her safety and possibly her life.
Everybody saw the happy-go-lucky football coach, and I saw the monster that he had become.
On the night of June 25th, 2010, almost a year after their breakup, she hears someone outside her home and realizes the monster is coming for her.
I instantly grabbed the gun, grabbed my phone, threw open the patio door, and I saw somebody standing all dressed in black from head to toe outside my bedroom window. And I told him I knew it was him and I knew he was there. And then he started coming at me, and pointed my gun to the right of him and fired a few shots to scare him off, and he stopped. I was so desperate for him to be caught.
While Mary detains him at gunpoint, police rush to the scene and cuff him.
He had brought weapons to my house. He had brought a knife in a sheath and a camouflage-colored flashlight and a crowbar.
He was arrested after the shooting incident, and then charged with stalking.
But Mary has also strayed outside the law by firing a weapon within town limits.
We don't encourage anybody to do that, obviously, but she felt that she was in danger and at risk, and I think everybody that was there that night felt that she was being sincere about that in regards of her feeling in danger.
Again, Jake makes bail and does not give up.
So even though I shot at him, he still came back. One night I was sitting in my house and I saw that he had driven by a few times. We called the police.
The fact that he actually had a gun fired at him by the victim, it was obvious that he was not getting the message. He had been warned more than enough and had more than enough chances to change his behavior.
He was the big football coach, and there's a lot of ego behind that. Man is somebody who cannot tolerate the idea that she could have the power to leave him, and he's going to do everything in his power to stop her from doing that.
I was extremely scared. Jake's threats and stalking just didn't stop.
Jake is a big enough guy that he was capable of anything.
I'd see him in the backyard. I'd see him driving by. He would follow me. He'd follow me to my friend's house. He would follow my friends from my house. It was just, he was constantly there, and I felt like my freedom was being sucked from me.
The fact is, if the police don't stop or can't stop Jake, he's not gonna stop on his own.
When he continues to violate the restraining order and the terms of his bond, police finally stop him. He's arrested and held for trial. On September 20th, 2011, Jake Williams is sentenced to 3 years for stalking, a Class D felony. Mary wins custody of their son.
She smiles again, which is really, really nice to see.
She's settled down now with someone new, a lot better than Jake. Her life in general is a lot better, a lot happier, safer.
I was finally able to sleep. I got my life back. Life now is good.
Mary fell for a respected member of the community, and it almost cost her everything. On the Florida Panhandle, Correctional Officer Dwayne Barentine also navigates the tricky landscape of new relationships. In 2007, the single dad and his young son are building a life for themselves.
It was probably a year and a half that I had custody of my little boy, and I was raising him by myself. And we lived out in the country. We had a nice, peaceful life, just me and him. But he would go to bed at night and pray for a mama. And when you hear a 4-year-old child sit there and kneel down on his knees and fold his hands and pray to God and wanting a mama, it breaks your heart.
Single father Dwayne Barentine is searching for love and for a mother figure for his little boy. But in small-town Florida, he has a tough time finding just the right person. In 2007, when Dwayne drops his son off at daycare, he notices the teacher, Miss Tasha.
She was very attentive with my son, and you could tell she was trying to go out of her way to win him over. We actually talked about how, she was raising her little girl by herself, and I was raising my son by myself. If my mom would go pick him up, she would go outside and talk with her and ask questions about me.
I told Dwayne, Tasha is interested in you for more than just a friend. She really wants to get to know you, I think.
She said, you ought to take her out and see how things go. She said, I think it would be good for you.
But will it be good for his son?
It worried me at first, and because I seen the heartbreak that he experienced when me and his mother split up, and I didn't want that to happen to him again. But you have to take risks.
Dwayne takes the risk and invites Tasha and her daughter to dinner.
The kids played well together, and he enjoyed having somebody to talk to and to play with.
Adult time goes well too.
In some ways, this whole situation was too good to pass up for Dwayne. He gets to put away his loneliness and his past and gets to start anew and also let his son's wish come true. What more could he ask for?
As they begin to date, everything clicks into place.
She was an answer to my prayers and his. I thought that it was a ready-made family.
And it's the kind of family Tasha's never really had.
When she did open up about her past, she talked real bad about her family, talked real bad about her mom and her dad and her brothers.
She says a college basketball scholarship gave her a way out of her early troubled life. But she never felt truly loved.
And that makes her seem like a lost puppy to Dwayne's family. So they really want to almost like rescue her and take her in and take care of her.
I thought she was just a down-home girl who had fell on some bad luck and was looking for some people that would accept her and bring them into their family.
Within 2 weeks, Dwayne and Tasha are a couple.
She was pretty well staying there every night, so she started moving her stuff in. I went with it. I fell in love with her.
Though he does notice she tends to embellish stories.
I could see something happen, and she could see the same thing happen, and when I would hear her tell the story to somebody else, it wasn't what I saw.
As Dwayne's family spends more time with Tasha, they also notice she has a tendency to stretch the truth.
We were catching her in lies. She had a scholarship to college for basketball. So my youngest son decides to challenge her in a game of basketball in our driveway. And it was obvious that the girl didn't know what she was doing. I knew more about basketball than she did.
Tasha's lies in some ways seem to be a product of her studying this family and figuring out what it is they wanted to hear. Basically, Tasha was attempting to create the person that she thought Dwayne and Dwayne's family wanted for him.
Dwayne can't help wonder what else she might have distorted. He does a little internet research.
I saw a marriage license where she was married in Pensacola.
The man's name? Marcus Connors.
And as soon as I found that marriage license, and I asked her who that guy was, and she immediately started crying and said that it was one of her ex-husbands. And I asked her how many times she had been married, and she told me that she had been married 5 times. That's when things started going a little south, because she was 31 years old, and she had already been married 5 times.
Tasha pleads with him to forgive her past mistakes.
He was really torn in his heart about what was going on, but he did not want to subject his son to having to lose what his son considered a mother figure and that little girl considered a father figure.
When a person's in love, they want to believe. They want to believe what's good about their partner.
He wanted to hold that little family together. He wanted to see the good in her. He wanted to be the person that gave her that opportunity to be a better person.
Dwayne decides to let it go and let her stay.
I had fallen in love with the girl that she appeared to be. I loved her daughter, and my son loved her.
The fact that he loves her means that he can ignore some really hard evidence that this may not be okay.
She will tell you that she has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. And I said, well, if you've got a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, why are you working at the daycare? Oh, I just feel like it's what God wants me to do. Tasha was very nimble with her response, and she could script a Broadway play, immediately. And you would believe it. You would buy everything that she says.
She wants to prove her love is true.
One day I come home from work, and she slipped a ring on my finger. And she said, will you marry me? I said, I'm the one who's supposed to do the proposing. She said, I know. She said, but, I just want to, give you this and let everybody know that you're mine and you're taken. And I said, okay.
It's really extraordinary that Dwayne would agree with this, because he has to wonder, if this woman's been married 5 times before the age of 31, the odds of this one lasting are pretty slim as well.
I told him that there was more to her than met the eye, and he needed to really be careful about what he was into.
Dwayne Barentine thought Tasha Fields was his perfect companion. But 5 months into the relationship, he realizes she's been lying to him. Still, he accepts her marriage proposal, hoping they can work things out for the good of their kids.
Love makes people grandiose and makes them feel like they're not going to fall into the same trap that other people fall into. And so he goes with it.
Dwayne gets an unexpected chance to learn more about Tasha when she asks him to pick up a friend from the hospital.
After they discharged him, me and him talk a little bit. So I started asking him some questions because, I mean, this girl's living in my house with me and my son, and I'm, digging a little bit.
The friend tells Dwayne about a weird conversation he had with Tasha and one of her ex-husbands, Greg Morton.
They actually disclosed to him that she had murdered one of her exes up in Missouri.
The alleged victim, Marcus Connors, the man who was on the marriage license Dwayne found. But did she really kill someone?
And I said, do you believe that? He said, no. He said, it's probably just another one of her bull lies. And I'm like, wow, it just gets deeper and deeper.
Dwayne doesn't confront Tasha about it.
I knew Dwayne well enough to know that he was filing this information away and he was keeping account.
By now, Tasha's left the daycare and works nights at a hospital, leaving him to take care of her daughter and his son. One night, her little girl falls out of her bunk bed and skins her knee.
She wanted to call her mom. So I called the hospital. They paged her. And they paged her, and they paged her some more, and she never came to the phone. So I immediately knew something was wrong. I just had a gut feeling, and I drove to the hospital, and her car was sitting in the parking lot, but she was nowhere to be found. The security guard told me that she had come in and immediately left with some young city cop that was coming and visiting with her. They would go outside and have smoke breaks together and everything else. And I thought that was kind of ironic because around me, she didn't even smoke. Once I found out that she had been seeing this other guy, I wanted it to be over. I was done. But I realized that she was the problem. I mean, you have a common denominator, and it's you. I'm like, look, I want my house keys and all my stuff, my checkbook, my debit card, and the key to the fence at the end of the driveway and everything else.
The little family breaks up just as fast as it began.
That was the hardest thing for Dwayne, is he felt so torn because he didn't want to put that little girl through being separated again, and he knew it was going to put his son through the same thing.
Tasha and her daughter move on.
She's very nomadic. She moves from place to place very frequently, but she was steady calling me.
I don't believe she ever completely cut anybody off as long as she could still get something out of them.
Cleaning up his computer, Dwayne finds emails Tasha had been sent.
Here's these emails from these people looking for this man. And there was about 4 of these messages, and none of these messages have been opened.
They're from the family of Marcus Connors, the ex-husband Tasha claimed to have murdered.
They had that wrote on there, we have a bunch of pictures of your daughter that we would like to give you, and we haven't heard from you guys in 4.5 years.
Maybe this time, Tasha wasn't lying.
And the ex-boyfriend saying, she was involved in the murder of one of her exes. I'm just putting it all together, and next thing I know, here's these emails from these people looking for this man. This is the guy. If they haven't heard from him in 4.5 years, it just gets my wheels to spinning. I'm gonna find out the truth one way or the other.
Dwayne takes his suspicions to the sheriff, who checks up on the ex-husband.
I ran his name in the computer. It looked to me like this guy had not been around for several years. I mean, there was no activity anywhere in the system that showed that he was had a driver's license, speeding tickets, any activity as far as employment or anything.
Detectives catch up to Tasha in Alabama. For hours, they question her about Marcus Connors.
Listen to me. All I'm asking you is look at me in the eyes and tell me, look, I was not there when you
I wasn't there.
I didn't have anything to do with it.
I didn't.
Okay, that's all we need to know.
I didn't.
I just want to
I
make sure.
couldn't shoot a dog. I did shoot a dog.
Well,
I shot a dog.
I just want to know.
Over several days, investigators interrogate her. She keeps changing details in her story.
Eventually, about 2 o'clock in the morning, they actually got her to break, and she admitted that Greg Morton had actually shot and killed him.
I'm not going to prison for something I didn't do. I'm not. I didn't do nothing.
What happened?
Let me tell you exactly what happened, okay?
Okay.
Let me tell you exactly what happened.
According to Tasha, shortly after she left Marcus, she moved to a remote farm with Greg Morton. When Marcus stopped by one day, the two men argued.
Greg started saying things, and he had a gun in his hand. And it was a black gun. And Greg shot him.
Where at?
He shot him somewhere in here. And
She said it just took her by surprise and scared her.
he had blood coming out of his mouth. And you could hear this noise. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, you could hear it. You know what I mean? Like a gurgling noise. I was numb, completely numb. I kept asking Greg, why did you do it? Why did you do it?
Tasha claimed she had no choice but to help bury the body. She didn't dare report the murder.
She was afraid that, she would be next.
Police learned Greg Morton has moved to St. Louis. Working with authorities there, they spot him at work and arrest him. But he won't admit to anything.
Interestingly, he seems to be standing by his woman. Tasha seems to cast some sort of crazy spell on all of these men that she meets. Greg isn't talking.
Tasha is laying all the blame on Greg, so they capitalize on that. As long as they made her feel like she wasn't going to be charged, she would play along, and she did. She led them to the body.
They find Marcus Connors buried exactly where she says he will be, with 6 bullet holes in his chest.
Tasha really believes that this body in the ground is her way of saying, I'm cooperating, I'm helping out, I'm going to show you that I would never show you this if I really was guilty, so you have to believe me.
So I'm thinking she's a very good liar.
I was very afraid. I was very afraid. If anybody would be able to work the system, Tasha would be the one.
For now, she walks free, and Greg Morton stews in jail.
Greg didn't want to implicate himself or Tasha if he didn't have to. They actually let him sit in jail for, a couple weeks, months, until the whole story came to fruition. Once he found out that, the body had been found and everything else, he made a deal.
Greg realizes that he's been played.
He actually made the statement that he must be the biggest fool that ever lived to have believed the lies and manipulation that she laid upon him.
Greg tells police Tasha wanted him to kill Marcus to protect her and her daughter.
She concocted the story that he had molested the child and raped her.
Tasha's playing the sex and victimhood cards, saying that this was about the sexual assault of her, the sexual abuse of her daughter. Greg really thought then that he was doing something to protect his woman by going after her ex-husband.
He says Tasha lured Marcus to their farm so Greg could kill him.
I kind of refer to her as being kind of like the Venus flytrap. It's very alluring, and when you get too close, it can be the death trap.
Investigators believe him that Tasha set the whole thing up.
Even though she was not the one that pulled the trigger, ultimately she is responsible for what occurred. She convinced someone to do the ultimate, which was take somebody's life.
Prosecutors agree Tasha was the mastermind. Greg Morton pleads guilty and gets 19 years in prison. Tasha Fields fights the charges and gets life.
And this is what I had watching my son every day. She got what she deserved. If something like that happened to me, I would want somebody else to do the same. Maybe the family can actually have some closure. Being with Tasha gave me an education that money can't buy.
Who's to say that if he had gotten married to her and stuck it out with her, that he would not have suffered the same fate?